Hello, everyone. My name is Kelty,
And I'm Stan.
and we're coming today to you from our home here in Water Valley, and we welcome you to our journey back into nature. First of all, we want to check and make sure that everything is working here. We're kind of out in the boonies, and so our relay is kind of slow because we run off a satellite. So can you please let us know in the chat room if you can see and hear us? Okay. Are we getting, oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm glad to know things are working well. Okay, well, we'll get started here. Loud and clear. Wonderful. Okay. So for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we're a husband and wife team. We're wildlife photographers, and we've been married for 15 years
15
now,
years,
eh?
yeah.
You remember that?
Oh, yes. Never forget that date.
And we have a blended family. We have 5 kids and 6 grandkids and some fur babies as well. And we thought we would just kind of share with you here too what we like to do. I myself love to garden and enjoy my flowers and flower beds. Spend a lot of time too over the last few years creating different types of willow baskets, chairs, things like that. And works out really well because when we go out to do photography, of course, we're going out to find where the moose are, and that's where the willow is. So it's a matter of finding willow that hasn't been eaten by the moose yet, but it works out well because Dan's shooting for moose and I'm looking for willow. I also love to sew and love to quilt as well. So those are 2 of my favorite pastimes that I've really enjoyed. And for me, I think my biggest lead into nature was my part in being involved in the guiding movement through brownies and guides and everything. What about you, Stan?
My passion is cooking and photography. I started cooking way back in, oh gosh, about 2000. I started learning how to cook, and I used to cook on the rigs for my rig crew. It wasn't my job description, but I did it because a healthy crew was a well-fed crew, a well-fed crew was a healthy crew, and they worked harder for you. So I enjoy it. There's me with my new smoker barbecue.
Yep, still dressed up in his rig attire. Some things never change, eh?
Yeah.
Anyhow, and also in the middle there's Stan and I, and we both love photography. That is definitely one of our biggest passions. And people often ask us, who takes the pictures, and I laugh because I have to tell them that Stan actually he's the addict, and I said I'm the hobbyist. So that's kind of how things run here. But anyhow, yeah, that's a little bit about us. So with our photography and what we do, our purpose is to show the beauty of nature through our lenses and to inspire people to reconnect with nature, because we believe nature is so very important to us and it's part of our lives. And with that, our mission is to give back to nature, and we do that by supporting wildlife rehabilitation programs through our proceeds, as we believe every effort makes a difference. Our passion is also in helping people reconnect with nature through our unique wearable works of art, and that's a new clothing line that we brought out here in the last year and a half or so. So the reason that we do this is we believe that the more people spend time in nature and really learn to appreciate it, and in doing that, everybody's going to reap the benefits of feeling that much healthier and happier because of it. We feel that if we can help people reconnect with nature, it's not just good for them, but it's also good for the environment. That, of course, is a reciprocal result, because the more people care for and appreciate the positive impact that nature has on their lives, the more likely they're going to want to protect it. So we're hoping that, in that belief that going forward, if we can carry that on into the next generations, the kids too will be able to look after the environment and do what they can to make sure that it's here for everyone to enjoy.
And this is some of the organizations we've worked with over the last 8 years. We designed a clothing line for Medicine River and some accessories, and we designed a clothing line for the Calgary Zoo. And then some of the other ones, we've done photography, we've done talking, engagement, and just donating time and money.
Yeah, and so that includes right now is the Ellis Bird Farm, We've done owl fostering with the Alberta Institute for Wildlife Conservation, presentations with Bear Smart, worked with Cochrane Ecological and the Legacy Land Trust, supported them as well, and more organizations are coming on board as we reach out and do what we can to help them survive as well. So again, I just wanted to thank you all for joining us. What we're going to be doing is through our presentation, at the very end of it, we're going to have a question and answer session. So if you come up with some questions along the way, we encourage you to go down to the very bottom of your screen there. You'll see in that black bar, you can click on the Q&A and just type in your questions. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll be happy to answer those questions for you. And also we have a chat room. And so there we encourage you to participate and put in some comments, whatever you have there. And that is another little box there along the bottom you'll see in your window there. And we're going to be asking some questions, so we encourage you to participate and follow along.
And then grab a piece of paper and a pen, because we're going to be giving some photography information and some other information out during our session. So you'll want to write these things down. And we just asked for no soliciting in the chat room. Just be ready to take some information and write it down, please.
So with that, we have two very important questions to ask you. So why are you here and what do you hope to learn? If you can maybe just jot something down in the chat room and let us know. It's always good to have an idea, and going forward, we're probably going to be doing some more of these. So we thought this will give us an opportunity to answer some more questions and subjects that we can maybe look a little further into. So let us know. Wonderful. Here to learn and connect with nature. Absolutely. And how can a city person enjoy nature? That's very true.
Good.
Yeah. And I mean, for us, we live out here in nature, but yeah, when you're in the city, it's a little harder sometimes to find it. So looking forward to that. New and interesting places to visit. You bet.
I was eager to learn photography and couldn't help.
Oh, my photography needs some help. Wonderful. And how to protect myself and not disturb Mother Nature. Love that. You're exactly in the right place.
Our core values.
Yeah, you betcha. Well, anyhow, I'm just going to let you know here, these are our guest speakers that will be joining us here this week. Of course, today, Stan and I are going to be sharing our Reconnecting with Nature, and that's going to be a little bit about how you two can reconnect, whether it's in your backyard or out in the forest. Tanya Fix from Green Seal Safety is also going to be joining us on Tuesday, and she's going to be sharing with you camping and day tripping with COVID. So that's a really interesting subject to entertain these days, but she's got lots of great information there. And then on Wednesday, Audrey Van Aken from the Mountain View Photography Service, she's going to show you how to utilize your iPhone camera when you're out in nature, because we know not everybody uses the big DSLRs, and even myself, I carry my iPhone with me because, you know, it's convenient and I love using it for videos. So yeah, that'll be fun and entertaining to watch as well. Then on Thursday, Christine Booker from Travel Booker Adventures, a friend of mine, she's going to come on and she's going to talk about an Arctic safari. So you'll certainly love that. I can't wait to hear. She's got some great ideas to share with you. So stay tuned for Christine's presentation on Thursday. And then on Friday, Carol Kelly, she is the director and founder of the Medicine River Wildlife Center. She's going to be joining us on Friday about what they do out there in their efforts to support wildlife rehab and how they too are making a difference. So that's kind of an idea of what the week is going to bring for you.
And this one is the humans are coming, the humans are coming. We're all coming out of our we're emerging from our dens, so we have to be kind of gentle with nature. They haven't seen us for a few months now, so be kind when we're out there.
Yeah, I can only imagine what all the animals must be thinking as we venture out back into nature, right?
Yeah.
Usually it's the other way around. So we're going to get started here. This is our story. We're going to be presenting to you a little bit about our story and what nature means to us. And then we'll talk a little bit about nature's therapy and different ways that we can bring that into all of our lives. And then lastly, we're going to connect with nature through our photography and share some tips and tricks with you there that we've learned along the way.
So this is a little short story of my life, kind of, my story. Why is nature so important to me? I grew up with a learning disability, and society back then labeled us kids with learning disabilities as dumb and stupid, and you could always hear the whisperings. So later on, I learned that that was my gift, and I actually have Asperger's, so I discovered that's my gift. And that's my ability to, for details and learning and being in nature. I'm a hands-on learner. And then I worked 40 years in the oil patch from when I was 16 years old on volatile experimental environment and in the oil industry. And over time that developed into PTSD because it really wreaked havoc on my mind. And for me now, going into nature is my medicine. It's a place where I can escape and be calm and safe, you know, in a different world.
And for me, well, nature has become my salvation. Years ago, my first husband was in an accident that left him handicapped. And being the proud perfectionist that he was, after a 9-year battle of depression, he committed suicide. I'll tell you, there's nothing in life that ever prepares you for that. It's something you always think is going to happen to someone else. It never happens to you. And at the time, my kids were teenagers, and our whole world was turned upside down. The stigmatism of suicide in itself was everywhere. And the trauma by everything that happened brought on my PTSD. So for me, nature soon became my escape. It's a place where I could go. There's no judgment, no decisions, just a place to heal. So nature was my world of comfort, and it certainly was my salvation. So that's why it's so very important for us to share our information with people, because we've been through it. We know what nature has to offer. And with that, we wanted to share some ideas how you too can connect with nature.
And it's just simple as putting a little bird water out in the backyard and attracting birds into a bath in your water, or you can have a feeder and bring birds in. Just out in the country, we can't have feeders because we have trapped bears, and some people don't like bears.
Well,
not in our backyard.
I like bears. I just don't want them when I'm not expecting them. So I don't let Stan put the feeders up in the
summer.
In the summertime.
So and another thing is just watching a robin pull a worm out of the ground is very relaxing. It's amazing how long they can stretch them worms out before they pop out.
Yeah, and another idea is, you know, maybe build like a fairy garden like we have there in the center. You know, go out and collect some different pieces of nature, you know, pine cones, things like that, twigs. Create your own little fairy garden, and it can be right in your own flower beds, or maybe as a bowl arrangement like you have there in the picture. Just a variety of things, and that's always a fun thing that I like doing every year. I really look forward to creating my little fairy garden planters. Another idea too is cloud watching. You know, if you don't have any nature nearby, sometimes you just have to look up. And you all remember that as kids, right? We used to do different types of cloud games, you know, and what you could do with clouds. And then Inukshuk's. For me, if you've been to our place out here, you'll see I have a number of Inukshuk's. So collecting rocks and building Inukshuk's. And you know, there is no right or wrong way to build an Inukshuk, really. And it's just a collection of rocks. And for me, that's always a sign that signal's going home. And lastly, fishing. You know, there's nothing more calming to be out in the middle of a lake or a river and fishing for your supper, or just for the sake of getting out. You talk to any fisherman, and I'm sure many of them will agree that half of the fun is just being out there. And it's not always about what you catch, but it's the fact that you're able to be out there and connect with nature.
Well, and just hiking and going out for walks in your neighborhood parks or out in the mountains. It's just a nice way to relax too.
Oh, absolutely. So just wondering, have you had any other different ideas of what you could do to help reconnect with nature? Put something in the chat room if you've come up with some ideas that maybe you could share with others as well.
And this is our water feature we put in our front yard. So we sit out at night and have a glass of wine and have our camera and watch all the different birds come in. We've had robins. The bottom left there is a Cape May warbler. And then the top right up there, that's a pygmy owl. And then that's a northern flicker down in the bottom right corner. And this is just another example of a little simple water feature. It's nice to have about 2 inches, 1.5 inches at one end, and then maybe about a 1/2 inch or so at the other end. So the bigger birds bath in one end and the smaller ones in the other end.
Yeah, we love to sit outside, like Stan said, at night and watch the birds come into this water feature. The top picture there, that robin, oh my God, they just love to get in that water and they splash. They just absolutely go crazy, and that's a treat. You know, that's definitely nature at its finest. So another idea is to have fun capturing nature in a slow motion video. And I was just going to share these 2 samples with you and how you can use your phone in capturing some nature. And this one here is our first one of the bumblebees that were on my Mardi Gras flowers. I get a kick out of this. It kind of reminds me of a Disney animation, eh? It's fun watching the bees as they collect their pollen. And off they go. So I encourage you to try that. If you got a phone and have a slow motion option to it, yeah, check out some of the bees. And if you do it in the morning, they're slower moving because I guess, you know, they've been sleeping all night and it's cooler. And then as the day warms up, they start moving around more. And then the next one is one that I took of our dog. And so if you're ever doing videos of animals like this, you want to get right down on the ground, get to their level. It seems to be that much more effective.
Good boy.
Yes, he was. He was a good boy. That was our McDuff. He was always a good subject for photography.
And this one here is a picture of some loons, and I always love photographing loons because they remind me of my mother. So maybe put in the chat window something that reminds you of someone from the past or a special place of an animal. This one is the loons is my favorite because my mom loved them, and she used to go to northern Saskatchewan with my sister Lita and her husband Dwayne, and she'd just sit up there in the fish camp and just listen to the loons at night and the morning. So every time I hear a loon, I think of my mom.
And for those of you that aren't familiar with loons, loons are what are on our loonie, our dollar coin. And oh, the song that the loons play is just amazing. And I'm sure anybody that is familiar with it can attest to the beautiful lonesome wail that they have. And I encourage you to just Google it, the wail of a loon. And there's a couple of different ones, but there's one that is just so melodic. It's just amazing. So you'll find too that loons you don't usually find them where they're close by a city. It's usually out in the really true wild areas. So the fact that we have loons nearby really amazed me when we first moved out here because, like I said, hearing that is definitely the call of the wild to me. I was just looking at some of your chats here. Every time I see an osprey and its goofy look, it reminds me of a coworker. Oh, that's a good one. Oh, you're right about that, eh? So yeah, it's amazing. We've heard from a number of different customers of ours that have bought in products and telling us how, you know, different images remind them of their parents or just as a close friend or something like that.
And this one here is another way we give back. When we go doing photography and nightly drives, we clean up all the mess around us because we want to leave it nicer than what we've seen it. So we pick up all the garbage. This incident, in one little spot here, we filled 2 garbage bags full of garbage, and we probably didn't go more than 30 feet.
Yeah, so
it's a shame.
It is a shame, and you know, even though we didn't put it there, it helps. It's that way that we can help make a difference, and we invite you to do the same. I know whenever we go out, we always make sure we have a garbage bag in our vehicle with us.
Or 2 or 3.
2 or 3. And spring's usually the worst because, of course, it's right after the winter. But something that just, yeah, it really does make a difference.
Balloons too. High five. Just still reading down there. Balloons.
So onward we go, and here we're going to share our 5 essential ingredients to capturing a great image. And ingredients, because of course Stan being the chef, the cook that he is, we know that's what makes up a really good batch. And so with that, we're firstly going to talk about the subject choice and the location. Also important is your camera choice and the equipment that you might need for capturing what you're looking for. Then it's the time of day and the lighting that you want to take into consideration. Stan's going to talk a little bit about post-processing for those that are interested. And then, of course, it's all about practice, practice, practice. So when we talk about subjects, this really reminds me of what it was like when we first started doing photography. You know, we thought it was all about going out and getting that awesome shot. I mean, that's what everybody wants, is that fantastic photo, that fantastic portrait of the wildlife or wilderness or scenery. But you know, what we found out in reality, and was quick to learn, is that to do that, to get those subjects, you really got to learn to understand those subjects. And you have to learn their behaviors and their habitat and their feeding times. And that's what leads you to be able to capture those amazing subjects. Because yeah, sometimes it's just a matter of chance that you're able to capture them, but for the most part, you want to be in the right place at the right time and being prepared. And that really makes a difference. So, so with that, like you said, it does, you know, if you're looking for wildflowers, you want to be at a higher altitude. If you're looking for the wildlife, you want to know when they're coming out. What time of day are they feeding? And even for the little birds as they're coming around, you know, you want to know what type of feed you want to be feeding your birds to be able to bring them around.
Or
So
find out just where they are. And even in the park, you want to know what the light's like when you're photographing mushrooms or flowers and stuff in the park, or even in your backyard. You want to know what type of lens and camera you need. So
yeah, so it's very important to know your subjects and to know the location of where you're going to find them at. Like I said, wildflowers, we're at 4,500 feet up here, and we have lots and lots of wildflowers. So if you're really interested in wildflowers, really, you know, study the areas and get to know the topography of different locations, and that's where you're going to find those wildflowers.
and then once you got that, then it's getting into the camera equipment. Do you want to use a DSL camera or a cell phone? And then what type of tripod goes with the camera? Because if you have a small camera with a small lens, you just need a smaller, lighter tripod. But if you have a big, heavy camera with, like mine, you need a big, heavy lens, or sorry, a big, heavy tripod. And then you take the lens you want to pick out, because if you're doing wildflowers, you want a macro lens or mushrooms or stuff like that, or garden flowers. And then if you're doing wildlife, you want a big lens so you can stay at a safe, long distance away from them. And the cell phone, that's something that's not really my expertise. I usually have to put my finger across the point where you're the shutter. What do you call that? The lens. I put my finger across the lens.
Yeah, he doesn't do well with cell phones. Yeah. If they, you know, they always say men says size matters. Well, yeah, Stan likes the bigger cameras for sure. But for me, like I said, I like the size of having a cell phone because it's so convenient and portable. And like I said, it's great for videos, and it's great for capturing pictures of Stan taking pictures with his big camera.
Yeah. Well, I'm a portrait photographer. I like to take really close up pictures of the animal so I get the detail and really get to see the colors of the fur and the feathers. And so I use a big lens, but there's all sorts of lenses. It's a whole long subject we could get into. And it's, you know, just do your research before you go buy camera equipment, because we bought a lot of stuff that we don't really use much.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, when you buy cameras as a kit, they often sell you the kit lenses. And you know, if that's not what you're going to use, you're better off just to buy a body and then go out buy the lens that you want. I have kit lenses from when I bought cameras when I really didn't know what I was buying or what I wanted, and never use them. And it would have been smarter and more economical just to buy the body that I want and buy a separate lens. And so for me, I like to take a lot of scenery as well as wildlife. So I like to have a zoom lens so that I can go from a scenery to a very long distance shot. And that's why I like having a sliding zoom lens. Whereas for Stan, well, he's more of a portrait photographer, and he likes the fixed lenses, and so that way he gets a really that much more of a crisper,
crisp shot.
Yeah, and clear shot. So something to keep into consideration when you're out there looking for camera equipment. I see someone had mentioned too is how do you send a chat to the host or a message to us? If you go into the Q&A, you can type it into the Q&A there. We also see the chats as well, but the Q&A we'll be looking at the end of the presentation, but we do see them as they pop up. So yeah,
it's down in your bottom server tray.
Yeah, down in the bottom there in that black ribbon that you'll see the Q&A and also the chat room. So yeah, feel free to type in there what you wanting to know or wanted to share. So when we're talking about getting a clear, crisp shot, you know, stability is huge. You want to make sure that your camera is stable. And that's something we learned in the very beginning. It doesn't matter, you know, how good of a camera you have. If you don't have a good stable base, you're going to get a blurry shot. And especially if you want to enlarge that shot. And that's a big important thing. Enlargements, you have to have a really crisp, clear image to be able to do that. And so, you know, we don't always have our tripods with us. And so for me, sometimes it's a matter of using a fence post. Sometimes I'll just stabilize myself for out and get out of the car. I'll just lean up against the car so that I have that stability with me. Stan, as you can see here, he often uses the car, whether it's shooting out the window or opening up the door and using the door as a stabilizer. So
even sometimes you use your wife, you get her to hold the camera when you're shooting out the window when she's driving. So, and you make sure she stays, don't move, don't move.
Yeah, I've been told.
And this is all about
this is about the time of day and daylighting. And as you can see here, what we're talking about in the two pictures on the right there, top right and the bottom one is the golden hour. And this is the time which it's 1 hour after sunrise and 1 hour before sunset. And you may have noticed when you've been out at that time, you know, just the whole environment changes. And boy, does it ever when you're out photographing wildlife or birds in this case. And this here is a great gray owl. So just to show you the difference, if you look at the top two pictures, the one photo on the left-hand side is just your normal daylight, whereas on the right-hand side is your golden hour. And just creates that much more of a softer effect. And it's pretty neat, the images that you can do, and what a difference.
And the best light for us, we find, is early in the morning because of the dew has kind of cleaned the air and it's not kind of got a haze or dust in it. So the air seems crisper and cleaner. So we like to go out in the morning and photograph for, well, approximately 2 or 3 hours. And then most animals start going away and hiding at that time of day anyway. So time for breakfast.
Yeah, yeah. And you find there's often less people out early in the morning too. And, you know, that's interesting too in saying that. It just reminds me of the story when we've been out and photographing bears, and people, you know, we come across people who will ask us if we've seen bears, and we'll say, well, yeah, we've seen like 12 of them. And well, this time last year we did one weekend, and, you know, they're saying, well, we didn't see any. Well, what time did you start looking for them? Well, I think we got out by 11. Well, we were out by, I think, 6. So, you know, that's when the animals really start to move, is in the early morning. So if you really want to better your chances, you got to get up with the animals.
And then there's 3 different types of lighting. The bluebird over there, that's front lighting. So you get that catch light in his eye, and you get all his feathers, everything lights up really nice. Then the little foxes there, they're side lit. So I was standing looking straight at them and the sun was shining through the side of them. And that gives a neat effect too, because it's their guard hair on their fur stands out and it kind of sparkles. And then down in the bottom is what we call mini-me. It's where the light is shining from the back and I'm standing at the front. And it puts a really neat halo around their ears and their horns and that. So it gives it a different effect. So there's different ways to get different effects, and you know, just
by using the light,
different lights.
Yeah. And that one on the bottom there, the mini-me of the buck and the 2 bucks, big buck and little buck, it's pretty neat because the backlighting actually, like you said, you can see their ears actually look pink because of the sunlight that's coming through the back. And their antlers are just covered in velvet at this particular time of year. So that backlight really illuminates it. It maybe doesn't quite show up as much in this as it does in the real life photos, but it's a really neat effect. And to be able to use that backlight to your advantage is something you definitely want to take advantage of.
And then post-processing, I use two different programs. I use Lightroom and Photoshop because I shoot in a RAW format, which is like an undeveloped film. So then I bring it into Lightroom and I adjust it because sometimes you get the animal just perfect, but the background, the grass is a little limey looking. So you want to darken the background a bit. Maybe the background is right, but the owl or the bird or the animal or whatever is a little off. So you want to maybe just tweak that a bit. But I always have one saying, you still got to get 95% or more in the camera because a shitty picture is a shitty picture. So you can't fix stuff if it's really shitty. And the nice thing about when you're taking a photo is always aim your sensors on the eyes, because if the eyes are tack sharp, you can blow them up big.
Oh yeah, Stan likes his retinas.
And then Photoshop, I use that for a few different things. I'll give you an example on the next page. So if you look at the one on top to the left, you'll see that picture. If you look right into the picture, you'll see these little white spots there. I think they're flowers or dandelions or something. And they just, to me, they're annoying. So when you've been out photographing and you get home and you have these beautiful pictures, and then you got these little ugly little spots in them. In Photoshop, there's a control in there, or a loop tool, and then you can go up to edit and fill, and you can make those little spots disappear. So that's a little trick to write down. And yeah, I use that all the time because there's nothing worse than having a beautiful picture, but something that just drives me crazy is those little spots.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, there's in, especially back in the earlier days, we'd go out, and if we're taking pictures, you know, there might be something like a post sticking out of my head behind me or something like that, and that edit and fill is great for taking out those things that you just don't want and that you can't reproduce those photos as far as opportunities. So that's a chance of being able to do a little bit to help fix up those pictures when you can.
Then you get a more professional quality picture that you're proud to hang on your wall and show your friends.
So our learning and appreciation of nature, of course, never stops. And when I look at these polar bear pictures, this reminds me of the story of how we actually, our passion for photography began and our inspiration to support wildlife rehab. And this happened a few years ago, well, I guess a number of years ago. It was our anniversary, and Stan told me he was going to give me fur for anniversary. And I thought, well, I don't normally wear fur, but I guess if you're buying it. And then he handed me tickets to Churchill because he knew I always wanted to see the polar bears. That was on my bucket list. And so with that, we decided, well, or Stan decided he needed a new camera because, like he says, when I take their pictures, I want to see their retina. And so anyhow, we made a trip down to the camera store and bought a new camera. And after about 2 weeks, he comes back and he says, I need a bigger one. So I took his camera and he went for the bigger one. And that was kind of the start of our photography. And we went on this trip to Churchill to see the polar bears, and it was just so amazed with the beauty it's up there. But not only that, it really opened up our eyes to see the environment and the effect that it has on the bears and what they're going through just to survive. That in itself, we thought, you know, we need to be able to do what we can to help support wildlife rehab programs that are trying to educate people and help the animals where they can. So with that, it was rather interesting. We came back and we decided, yeah, we want to do what we can. So hadn't even told anybody our plans of doing this, but it's amazing how once you put it out there to the universe, how it comes back to you. And with that, within a couple of weeks, we were contacted. We went out and we did some owl fostering with an organization, and we fostered
8 of them.
8
in a
of
couple
them.
of weeks.
Yeah, in 10 days, we fostered 8 great horned owlets into some new nests, and that was an amazing experience. And I just, you know, it's great to be able to photograph big animals, the bears and stuff like that, but to be able to see these little tiny owlets going into new nests, because, you know, if we don't get them into the nest so that the parents can teach them, they'll stay in captivity. And so we've got to get them into a new nest so that the new parents can teach them how to fly and how to hunt. And so that was a fun thing that we got to do. And then a couple, probably another week later, we got a phone call to go out and do some fawn fostering this time. So yeah, so we've been doing fawn fostering every year now, and just love being a part of that kind of a program. So for us, those are the perks of being able to help support the wildlife rehab programs that we work with.
And this was the second trip we went on. We went to Alaska to Lake Clark National Park, Silver Salmon Lodge, and we were photographing the Alaskan brown bears. We went up there with David Cardinal. And this is where we learned about lighting. He was always making sure we were always positioned. The guide and him would move us around always so we were in the right position. So you can see the two little baby bears there. We got nice shots of them. And then one morning we were out and they were clamming, the mums. And they were quite a ways apart to begin with. And then the one slowly was moving in towards the other one. And their guide says, oh, get your cameras ready because they're going to put a run on each other. They do this all the time. So we all started getting our cameras ready, and we're waiting, and all of a sudden they come up and they just went into a full-fledged fight, the roaring and the teeth snapping that went on for, what was that, about 2 minutes?
Well, I thought it went on for like 5 minutes, but we found out after it was 90 seconds from the first shot to the last.
And then they did that, and they chased each other up and down the beach for over an hour because we went back in to have our breakfast, and we were wondering because each of these mums had 2 cubs each. 2 of them went west and 2 of them went to the east. So, you know, anything could happen. The boars could get them or they could just get washed out by the tide. So we were all really worried. But on the way back into the lodge, our guide looked up a tree and there was 2 little cubs, probably what, 60 feet up or 70 feet up in a spruce tree.
Oh, yeah.
Way up the top, just hanging on for dear life. So we went in and had breakfast and we came back out, and I guess some other people had seen the mom come and get her cubs, and the first thing she did is started nursing them right there in front of them. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. And so as Stan was mentioning, you know, lighting is so important, and positioning and being prepared. And like I said, when we were up there, the guide that we were with was always adamant about having us in the right position for light. And the fact that we were able to capture these 2 bears fighting in that light was just the fact that we were at the right place at the right time.
Because that was 6 o'clock, I think, in the morning.
Yes, 6 in the morning. So like I said, you got to get up early. And of course, when you're up in Alaska in the summertime, the sun really never sets. So we were out here at 6, so we were probably heading out at 5 that morning. And it makes for some very long days. But the nice thing is on these kind of trips too, is that as the afternoon comes and the sun gets hot, the bears tend to go back into the forest and into the bushes. So then that kind of gives you a break. And you go back out again for the evening. And yeah, it was definitely an experience of a lifetime for us. The little guy down in the bottom left-hand corner here, we call him Baby Yoga Bear, because it was so fun watching him. He's doing his hamstring stretch and watching the cubs, you know, wrestle and play. It reminded me of watching a couple 2-year-olds playing around. You know, one would go lay down and the other one would go over and curl up beside it and reach over and kick it in the head, and then they'd start wrestling and playing. And what they're doing is they're basically preparing for what the mums are doing on the right-hand side. They're preparing for that big moment of being able to.
One of the neat things was we watched the little babies dancing and playing. I think there was one. Well, we don't have that one in ours, but anyway, there was some little babies fighting. Then we were out one day and we seen juveniles fighting and playing, and then the last day we were there, it was these guys who were out fighting. So you can see the preparation from babies to adults, how it comes into play. And this was our last trip we took last September, and we went out and photographed spirit bears in the Great Bear Rainforest. This was a trip of our lifetime. I think I've seen the polar bears and the grizzly bears, but these spirit bears, there's just something else about them. You know, just they were walking literally like within feet of you. You can see down in the bottom left corner, that's Maha. She come right up and just stare right in my face. That's one time when lens is too big, and all you could do is just sit there and look. And she looked right into my eyes. I looked into her eyes, and it was just like you have a bonding moment. The only thing I was worried about is my foot was sticking out. I thought her claw was going to go through my rubber boot. And then after she walked around and left, she went over and grabbed a salmon and started eating it. I turned and looked at my guide, and he gave me the thumbs up, and I gave him the same one back with a big smile. It was just definitely a trip of a lifetime to see these beautiful bears. They go about the river like you're not even there, because what you do is you sit on the bank and you're told not to move or talk or do anything, just take pictures. So you sit there still. So if the bears are there for 3 hours, you sit there for 3 hours, unless you got to go pee or something, then you can just crawl away really lightly or fast and go do your business. But yeah, it was a lot of fun just sitting on that bank for 8-10 hours a day, just watching bears walk up and down, catching fish. And
But like you said, it is a long day. We were out every morning. We were up by 5 and we were off. What time did we head out? Oh, by 6, I
by
think.
7:30.
Yeah, so we're in location. So yeah, so you're in that area for a good 8 to 10 hours, and lots of times you're just waiting, and yeah, just waiting for the bears to come, and they all come and walk up and down the streams looking for fish, and yeah, definitely an experience of a lifetime, that's for sure.
Mhm.
So anyhow, one of the biggest things that we always say is that to better your photography, it's all about practicing and being prepared and being patient. And so, you know, if it's practicing in your yard or when you're out, I mean, it may not be the subject that you're looking for, but the more you practice, the better you'll get at being able to capture it when that big moment does arrive. So for me, you know, I'm out when Stan's out looking for something, I'll be out practicing other things, whether I'm practicing motion shots or I'm just practicing with different lighting conditions. Stan, well, we have a fur and feathers thing that happens around here. It seems to, anytime that seems to happen, Stan's out the door looking for something to photograph and has the trigger finger going, and there he is, even in the wintertime, out photographing birds.
With my hobo clothes on.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't my apron.
Yeah, that's been known to happen.
But yeah, as soon as we see something interesting, we were out the door. And what it was this time that I was seeing is if you look up at the top of that little chickadee, that's a chestnut-back chickadee, and they come from the west coast of BC. And then about 3 winters ago, we had 3 of them showed up in our yard. So we made a contact to, what was that, the Audubon Society?
Mm-hmm.
And they came and brought some people down to look to see if they were really there to verify it. Sure enough, we had 3 of them, and they stayed for the winter. We had them for about 4 months that we know of, and they stuck around, and we had all sorts of people wanting to come out and see it because it's a very rare sight. So it was a really interesting, because we normally have the blackcap, the boreal, and the mountain chickadee, but to get the 4th one, that was unique. So we got all 4 of them. We call it the Birder's Quest, because we had one guy showed up. He told me he's photographed some like 52,000 birds in the world, and he had to have this. He's had all 4 chickadees, but never 4 in the same location on the same day. So this was like his biggest Birder's Quest. So that's why we named it that. And then the biggest thing is always being prepared. Even when I have my camera in the house, I get up in the morning, I do a meter shot and check my camera to make sure it's ready for the morning. Midday, I do another camera shot, get it all ready. And even in the evening, because last night I was cooking supper about 7:30, and I looked out my window, and lo and behold, what was on our side driveway lawn? There was a mom licking her baby fawn. I just could not believe it. So my camera was ready, and I must have got, what, about 25 good pictures of that little guy. And then he come back this morning again for about 10, 15 minutes. So yeah, always having your camera prepared. Even when we're driving down the road, we're always stopping, making sure our cameras are ready, or the passenger, make sure both cameras are ready. And you know, the lighting changes from in trees to out in an open area, so it's always good to have it. I still even mess up every once in a while and have a bright one or a dark one, but
especially if you forget to change the settings from the previous day.
Forget to change your ISO or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get
Oh, I see someone had asked a question there in the chat room about what month we went to the Great Bear Rainforest.
That was in September last year, mid-September. That's about prime time, from about the 1st right around to about mid to 20th in there, in that range.
Yeah, because this is a time when they're coming down to fish for the salmon, because otherwise they stay up into the mountains. So they're starting to come down to the creeks to fish. And the company we went with, it was Wildlife Journeys.
Tim Irwin.
Tim Irwin, yeah. And Tim has been a guide along the coast for many years. He lives out actually in Ontario now, but he still comes back and does trips with them up there, and goes in with Marvin Robinson, and he's a native guide that takes us in. And so we spent 5 days up there with them. So if you want to know anything more, yeah, feel free to contact us. And
just put it in the Q&A and we'll answer questions at the end. Mm-hmm.
So just wanted to share with you a few accessory tips for taking on a trip. You know, it doesn't matter, you got to know where you're going, so you always want to make sure that you're prepared for any kind of weather that could happen up there. So a good pair of rubber boots for us, like when we went to the rainforest, as well as water gear, rain gear.
Rain gear.
Yeah, and I like my gloves with my fingerless openings so that I can have quick access to my controls. And a headlight is actually pretty useful too, especially if you're going out to do early morning shots, even like sunrises especially, because you got to be out there and set up and ready before that sun comes up. So you want to have some light that you're able to access and see your camera dials.
That's where knowing your location comes in handy, because you have to be there and know what direction the sun's coming so you get the right shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a headband. The first time I went out, I forgot to take it, and I'll never forget it again. If you're out in the morning, and it doesn't matter, it can be the middle of summer, but it is cool before that sun comes up. So you want to have a headband or some kind of headgear that you can bring along with you as well.
And then having a camera harness, we wish we would have had one of those when we went to the Great Bear Rainforest, because and we wish we'd had those too, as walking poles, because you're walking on some pretty slippery ground. So you want your hands free in case you fall or you're slipping and you want to grab something. So having a camera harness is really important. Having hip waders is nice, because when we're in the Great Bear Rainforest and even up in Alaska, me and Kelty like to shoot at eye level. So we're usually down on our knees or sitting on our butts, usually photographing the bears and that at their level.
And like you said, our days are long when you're out on these big trips. So I encourage you to bring something along to sit on, because you don't always have an available spot to sit. So find something that is very light and very portable. That's one thing I wish I had had, but even just like a little stool like this. And actually, I see now they even have some that have backs on them. So I would really encourage that. If you're going out on a long trip and you want to find out how long is your day going to be, yeah, you want to have something that you can sit on for sure. And then lastly, it was the collapsible walking sticks, very beneficial. Like I said, when we were up in the Great Bear Rainforest, there was times when we were getting off the boats, and I mean, these are not, you're in the wilderness, so there's no wharfs or docks. So you're crawling off boats onto barnacle covered rocks, and it was rough and uneven terrain. So a good walking stick is something you definitely want to have with you. So encourage you to look for them.
And the forest is wet and the ground's slippery, and you're going down hills and up hills and stuff and through the bush. So yeah, I definitely would recommend having poles. I'm definitely looking for some.
Yeah. So that here is the end, as it says, of our presentation. We hope you've enjoyed it, that you picked up some tips along the way. We also have a little poll that we're going to pop up here, and we'd like you to answer that if you wouldn't mind.
It just helps us serve you better in the future.
So give you a few moments here to look at these questions and answer them, so that kind of gives, like it says, gives us a better idea of how we can help you going forward.
And there was someone I noticed had a question there about canoeing and kayaking. There is a beautiful little lake out here called Winchell Lake.
Yeah,
and it's really nice for kayaking, and you can watch the loons from a nice safe distance. And
so when it comes to cameras, there's all kinds of people, and what you can do with your cameras. And some people use DSLs, some use iPhones, or even tablets. So
I can't use an iPhone because I get my finger in the way all the time.
Yeah, that does happen.
My legs is big, my finger can't go way out there.
Yeah. So I'll just give you a few more seconds there to finish that off, if you don't mind.
We'll share the results tomorrow with you.
Yeah. We really appreciate you answering these questions for us, because like I said, it does give us a good idea. And going forward, we're looking at having some more guests on, and hopefully maybe doing a 3-day webinar once a month. So we'll be ending the polling here. So if you like to hike and explore with confidence, well, and you certainly aren't going to want to miss tomorrow. Tanya Fix is going to be here with us with the Green Seal Safety, and she's going to share her tips about camping and day tripping with COVID. There's definitely been some changes with all of that's happening, but she's got some wonderful information that she's going to share with you, because, when you're out in nature, not all the hazards out there are the four-legged animals, and Tanya's got a lot of good information to share with you on that. So definitely want to come back and stay tuned for her. Okay. So with that, we ask you, if you don't mind sharing, we would love for you to, let your friends know we're here for the next 4 days as well. We've got, like I said, different guest speakers coming on with a variety of different subjects and whatnot. So yeah, please share with your friends and family, because the more we can help reconnect with nature, the better we'll all be. So with that, we want to let you know too that on our 5th day, we're going to be offering you a virtual travel pack as our thanks to you for staying with us and joining us on our journey here. This is going to consist of a variety of information that you're going to love. It's coming from all the different speakers that are with us here this week. So thank you so very much. We sure appreciate you joining us with that.
Now we'll open it up for the Q&A. So you have to bring up
yeah, so we're going to take any questions and answers that we can answer for you right now. Yeah, I'm just having a look here to see up at the top. Okay, so John and Catherine had asked if we are familiar with the book Last Child in the Woods. Oh, amazing book, isn't it? Oh, absolutely. If you've never read it, we really encourage people to check it out. It's amazing information, and it's so very true. They talk about nature deprivation and what is happening with the next generation if we don't do something about it now. And definitely a book that is well worth reading. And there's actually another one that he just recently brought up. Yeah, we're listening to an audiobook of by Richard too, and it's I believe it's called Calling of the Wild.
Call of the Wild?
Calling
of the Wild.
Calling of the Wild. So yeah, I want to check that one out. It's pretty interesting.
There was an interesting little story in there where they were talking about kids with Asperger's. Like they say it calms them to let them sit and stare into a forest. And me having Asperger's, it makes sense because I can see why. That's all the patterns and shapes and designs of the trees that draw your eyes into it. And it calms me down. I love staring at trees.
Oh, and then someone asked, what's your best lens for wildlife, Stan? Remember, we only have a few minutes.
Mine, I like my 500. I've got a 500 fixed. The only bad thing with that is some days it's way too much of a lens. You got to either walk back or forward to zoom in and out. But yeah, my favorite one is the 500 to prime. You can't get a nicer picture than with that lens. And I use a 5D Mark IV and a 5D Mark III. I got two camera bodies and 2 different lenses. I got a 24 to 300. So those are my favorite lenses. And Kelty's got a 20 to 200 or 24 to 200 because she likes to take the wide angle plus have some zoom.
Yeah, and my camera's not nearly as big as Stan's, so it's not always about size. I shoot with a little Canon T3i, and I love it. It's easy, it's lightweight for me, and it's easy to hold. So, yeah, it's personal preference. It depends what works for you. Somebody had asked too about that they had mentioned about canoeing and kayaking. Oh, and getting a beehive to learn more about the creators, creatures. Isn't that true too? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the information that we've found about bees is phenomenal. And so it's hard to believe, but Stan is actually letting his dandelions grow.
That bee food. That's why I don't look at them as dandelions more, they're bee food. Another thing is planting thyme. We watch a lot of butterflies in our front yard because we planted thyme out in our
sidewalk.
Thyme, yeah. Thyme. Yeah. And we put that in our sidewalk, and it just turns bright pink in the summer. And the bees and the butterflies just love that.
Yeah, it's amazing what brings in the animals and the butterflies and the bees and things like that. Teresa had asked about where we would find the gloves that we had talked about in our equipment there. So those are, yeah, and actually, any of the sports stores. I know actually texting gloves now, I guess, is a thing that's out there too. I'm not sure how well they work or how warm they are, but and also if you have a friend that knits, I meant to put my picture on here from the gals that came down. We used to have a bed and breakfast, and they knew we loved photography, and they had knit us some gloves with a fingerless opening. Yeah, me. Yeah, you didn't. Yeah,
not me.
Yeah. So I really recommend looking for gloves like that.
I like bare hands because I like to feel my controls and know where all my buttons are when I work on my camera.
Yeah. So, and John and Catherine asked about our lake again. So it's Winchell Lake. It's Winchell. And where that is we are located an hour northwest of Calgary. And so Winchell Lake, it's a beautiful little lake. It's not very big, but it's very deep. And that's why you get the waterfowl on there. No boats are allowed on there, like I said, other than canoes and kayaks. So a beautiful little place to go. You'll love it if you're in the area. What was the camera holder in the picture?
The harness?
Oh,
The
that
camera harness.
Yeah.
That's the thing I'm researching right now. I'm thinking you can find them probably in the camera store, or what's the other one in Calgary there?
Well, that one is that one was from the camera store.
That's from the camera store?
So if you go online and just Google it, camera harness, that'll tell you where you can find those kind of things, and something we really recommend if you're going on trips, because you got to have your hands free to be able to stabilize yourself when you're walking.
Well, even if you're hiking in the mountains and that, you can have your poles and you still can have your camera with you, and you're not packing it around your neck and getting a sore neck from it.
Someone here says, Brad was saying he says he does many days in the fall hunting upland birds with his 3 dogs. A phone is what I carry due to weight. Yeah, I can understand, but he's wondering if it's time for a new one, and he was wondering what you would recommend, if you had any preferences.
Phones?
No,
Oh,
I think let's go to a bigger camera.
A bigger camera?
Something lightweight, but.
You'd probably want like something like a T3i or something light, because the newer ones now, I think
so
they're like
light.
maybe a pound or a pound and a little bit. Like they almost feel like a kid's toy. They're so light feeling.
They're fiberglass.
Yeah, they're very, very, very light. So yeah, I would look at that, because I don't even know if they even make point and shoot cameras anymore.
Well, so many phones now have really excelled that they've really eliminated a lot of point
Got rid of
shoots.
those point and shoots.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would just look for something small, even like Sony, excuse me, even a Sony, like they've got them with fixed lenses, and they can zoom out to like about a 600 mil lens now, and they're mirrorless and that, and they're light. So one of those might be something you might want to look at.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and Sally had asked if we had any recommendation on headlamps.
I think we found ours at Warehouse.
No, I think that one came from Bass Pro, and I've only ever used the one that we have. Can't really say I would recommend one over the other. I haven't really tried them. I just found that like I said, I really enjoyed it for having to be available, for having that extra light when you're out, especially for, like you said, those early morning shots for sunrises.
I think we lost ours.
No, it's in there. It's we have another bag. We have multiple bags. It's in the bottom of one of them. And Teresa had asked about the book. It's Last Child in the Woods, and the author is Richard Louv, L-O-U-V, and you'll really enjoy that.
His other book is it's really, really good, but he gets into some pretty in-depth conversations and talks.
A lot of research.
Yeah,
this
a lot
last
of
one.
research.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting, both of them.
John and Catherine asked, will you have a class on photography sometime after COVID? Well, stay tuned for that. We're going to be talking more about options for photography, because with Zoom, we can do a lot with Zoom nowadays. We're just learning ourselves.
We can even do that with COVID, probably.
Yeah. Oh, somebody asked about the T3i lens. Yeah, it's a 24-200. It's a zoom lens. So that's what I use on my Canon T3i.
Actually, it's broken too.
we use them a lot.
We wear stuff out. They're not supposed to be sitting in your closet or anything. They're supposed to be used. So we wear our stuff out.
Yeah. Oh, and Wendy mentions how the dandelions are great right now to watch the bees. Oh, absolutely. You're right about that. And the nice thing too, for those that aren't familiar about the dandelions, is once the dandelions go to seed, that's when the bears really start to come down to the roadsides, because that's where they find the dandelions, right?
That's the rabbits like them, the deer like them, everybody likes them. So yeah, there's lots of animals like them. So now we got dandelions on the lawn. Maybe the bears will come by and visit us.
There's no feeders out there.
No, it's all natural.
You bet.
Yeah, we don't put no pesticides or chemicals on our lawn because of that, the bees and the birds and everything else. So yeah, we keep it clean.
So anyhow, John and Catherine, they commented about the book. Yes, Last Child in the Woods, it is an awesome book. We really encourage you to go out and check it out. It's a fantastic book, and it really makes you stop and realize, what we need to do to be able to go forward in this world and make it a better place. So that's about it. That's it. That's our presentation for today. And thank you once again for joining us. We don't want to hold you up. Just about on time here, and we hope you'll all come back again tomorrow and share with Tanya and what she's got to say, and helping you get back into nature and enjoy your day. So thanks again, everyone.
Thanks again. Spread the word to your friends. We'd love to have more, and see you tomorrow.
Bye for now.
Bye for now. No, we didn't do